Hello everyone, and welcome to my Indigenous Peoples presentation. Today, I'm here to talk to you guys about the Nenets people of Northern Russia. But first, I'd like to explain to you the objective of this video. The main things I'll be focusing on is their culture, historical background, traditions, how they hunted, and how they have changed over the years leading up to today. So, who exactly are the Nenets people? The Nenets, also known as Samoyed, are a Semitic ethnic group native to northern Arctic Russia. According to a census done in 2010, there are around 45,000 Nenets living in Russia, most of whom live near the Yamal Peninsula. With a territory about 1.5 times the size of France, the Yamal Nenets district is located in northwest Siberia, just northeast of the geographic border between Europe and Asia above the Arctic Circle. There are two different groups of Nenets people, the Tundra Nenets, living in the far north, and the Kandiyar or forest Nenets living further south. Recently, there has been a third group of Nenets people emerging because of marriages between Nenets and the Ismakami people. Here's an interesting fact for you guys. Up until the 20th century, the Nenets used to go by the name Samoyed. But why did they change their name? It changed because the literal meaning of their name in Russian meant self-eater, which was considered derogatory. So they were then known as the Nenets people, which means man. The Nenets language is on the Uralic language family, with two major dialects, the first being the forest Nenets, who live further south, and the second being the tundra Nenets, with the people living further north. There isn't much difference between the two. It would be the equivalent to someone from Saskatchewan speaking to someone from Newfoundland. It is estimated that between 26,000 and 27,000 people in Siberia speak the Nenet language. In Siberia, the young people are still fluent in Nenets, whereas in European Russia, they tend to just speak Russian. However, the majority of native speakers are from the older generation, so sadly, their language is dying. UNESCO, or the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization, classifies the Nenets as an endangered language. Now for some history. Sometime around the 12th century, the Nenets moved from southern Siberia to the northernmost part of what later became Russia. They did this to be close to the vast amounts of reindeer, which were their primary food source. They had ended up between the Kanin and Taimur peninsulas, around the Ob and Yenisei rivers, with only a few people settling into small communities. As previously stated, their main food source comes from hunting and reindeer herding. Though they had always herded the reindeer, it wasn't until the 18th century that large-scale reindeer herding emerged. I'll come back to the importance of the reindeer herding in a little bit. They also used to breed the Samoyed dog, which is a large herding dog with a thick white coat to help herd the deer and pull their sleds. One thing they always had to be on the lookout for was the tundra wolves. They can cause huge loss for the Nenets by feeding on the deer herds or even taking one of their own lives. Moving forward to the aftermath of the Russian Revolution, their culture suffered due to the Soviet collectivization policy. Similar to what happened here in Canada, the Soviet government forced the Nenets to settle down permanently. They were forced to settle down in villages, and their children were educated in state boarding schools, which resulted in erosion of their cultural identity. Sound familiar? Many of these people lost their mother tongue and became assimilated. Coming back to why the reindeer are very important to the Nenet people. The Nenets herder economy is driven by reindeer meat that they sell. The salary they get from herding state farm reindeer is minimal when compared to the income they get from selling private reindeer, and from sawing off the antlers to export to China to be a male potency drug. As previously stated, aside from its market value, the reindeer is a source of food, shelter, clothing, transport, spiritual fulfillment, and means of socializing. For example, it is still tradition to use the reindeer as a dowry to get married. The reindeer is also revered as a symbol. It is believed that the people and the deer entered a kind of social contract where reindeer offered themselves to the humans for their substance and transport, and the humans agreed to accompany them on their seasonal migrations and protect them from the predators. An interesting fact about the reindeer is that in the summertime, the Nenets use the deer as a natural defense against mosquitoes. The Nenets still rely on traditional clothing sewn by the women. A Nenets man wears a malisa, which is a coat made of around 4 reindeer skins, the fur being closest to the body on the inside and the leather facing outward, acting like a windbreaker. It also has an integrated hood and gloves similar to a poncho with no buttons or zippers. The women wear a yaushka, which has a double layer of around 8 reindeer skins and which is buttoned at the front. Both men and women wear hip-high reindeer skin boots, which consist of an inner and outer boot that are worn together and tied up with a belt. The Nenets people live in teepee-type structures called chums. The chum is a living space made out of reindeer skin that are laid over a skeleton of long wooden poles, many of which have a special position in the structure and are not interchangeable. Usually there will be one family per chum, and the number of chums will depend on the size of the brigade or camp. During migrations, chums are moved every other day among the most mobile herders, and the chum sites are chosen based on pasture, relief, and ground quality. Having a water source nearby is also important for brewing the number one Nenets beverage, Sri Lanka black tea. After checking the vegetation on the chum site, the brigadier thrusts his reindeer driving stick, called a kori, into the ground exactly where he wants the center of the chum to be. Hunting and fishing supplements the Nenets' way of life. For those with smaller herds, fishing is of particular importance and counts for most of their income. When meat can't be stored during the summer months, it makes more sense to fish for substance rather than to slaughter a reindeer. During the winter, the Nenets fish through ice holes using a large net that's underneath the ice. When fishing this way, the Nenet men can be seen plunging their hands into the ice cold water to warm them up, which I thought was pretty funny. Traditionally, hunting was done with snares and traps, but nowadays, with no market for polar fox, hunting is done more for sport and to add a little variety to the diet. Almost every herder carries a gun that comes in extremely handy for protecting the herd from predators. The Nenets follow the beliefs of shamanism. Shamanism is still practiced in parts of the tundra, but only in very small groups, due to the fact that shamans are often afraid of making themselves known to the outsiders. The Nenets have an amist belief system centered on local deities that are represented by dolls that they carry on sacred sledges. Other dolls represent copies of ancestors. The dolls are kept in their own sleeping spaces in the chum, and are sometimes fed vodka and blood when their help is needed. The tundra is also covered in a close network of sacred sites. The ancient Nenets' ancestral knowledge is kept alive through folklore that is acted out in legends and songs. Such music uses no instruments, and it was only the shamans who used the drums to help them enter a trance-like state. Since the discovery of oil and gas reserves in the 1970s, the Nenets have an increasing contact with the outside world, and the infrastructure on the Yamal Peninsula has been rapidly expanding. The tundra is now home to several gas worker villages, is covered by thousands of expansion drill sites, and is home to a new railroad connecting Russia to the west. Building infrastructure on the peninsulas of permafrost, bogs, and lakes has significant consequences for the Nenets' indigenous lifestyle that exists in this environment. Malpractice has been recognized in the region, and today there is a great awareness of the dangers. Herders have also seen benefits from oil and gas. For example, there's trading to be done with oil workers who can get fresh meat and fish in exchange for rice, pasta, staples, and free rides in the gas worker transport. This relationship has turned some local gas workers into tundra experts who know the details of the herders' summer migration patterns. The Nenets people have become more confident that the oil and gas can exist alongside their lifestyles and that constellations have improved matters. Still, past damage remains, and there is fear of more damage in the future. The 8th Brigade, with whom Tribe travels, lost 5 crucial summer campsites to gas development in the last 8 years. Herders also noticed that the fish, which are crucial for the herders' diet in the summer, are far less plentiful in the lakes. The issue is a conscious one, and one which is very much still being debated. The herders themselves, with the support of academics, have recently tried to catalyze these debates by drawing up a list of issues, which they want addressed by the administrations. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope you guys all learned a thing or two, because I know I have.